Good afternoon. I'm Harry Hayes, Senior Advisor to Routeware and Rubicon for a Smart City Solution. I want to thank you for attending our webinar today on ROI and cost savings within your solid waste department. As you have seen from the invitation, I'm a former Chief Operating Officer for the City of Houston. I did that for 7 years for 2 different mayors and spent 13 and a half years as a solid waste management director. The importance of this webinar is to discuss the challenges that you're facing in your various solid waste and fleet operations. We have 2 wonderful experts here who I've got to know very well, Connor Muldoon and Philip Davis. And we're going to talk about technology and the pressures that solid waste systems have been facing over the last decade or so. Some of which you're very familiar with. Number one would be kind of the Amazon effect of home delivery, where more garbage and packaging has been transferred from boxes, businesses, to the home solid waste containers. So that's Amazon, Walmart, grocery stores, restaurants, etc. The second that we've had has been the increase from the first in the increase in recycling. And so with more deliveries, we get more recyclables that are ending up in the solid waste systems, and politicians and council members and citizens demanding that we have sustainable systems and not use a lot of landfilling and or incineration. The third piece, which we're seeing more and more of each and every week, it seems, and certainly 1 year seems to outdo the previous, would be the emergency events. In the past few weeks, we've had several hurricanes, we had forest fires, and so that creates various waste streams that we have to either collect or contract with to manage that. And then certainly the COVID effect, which has put more people working from home, and many of those folks are yet to return to the office. So we have office waste that has been transferred to the solid waste systems. And so, and then finally, as collections and these other transportation industries have taken hold, we have increased competition for qualified commercial drivers. And so that has put pressure on the operators of our local solid waste systems. It's also put pressure on our fleet maintenance departments with the technicians that will either stay with us or go to the private sector and work. And so with that, I'm going to spin to our 2 experts who will talk about how they have looked at the pressures that they have faced within their operations and how they have, if you will, put a 12th person on the field to help with the defense and the offense, and that is a technology solution. So with that, let me pivot to Connor Muldoon. And Connor, if you'd take a moment and introduce yourself and tell us what you've done to deal with this issue.
Sure, thanks, Harry. Great to meet everybody on the webinar here. My name is Connor. I'm from the city of Syracuse, New York. And unlike maybe some folks, I'm actually not part of our Department of Public Works. I'm an offshoot of our mayor's office, and I help to run our Office of Accountability, Performance, and Innovation. We're tasked with project management and digital transformations across the enterprise. And I've spent a lot of time over the past couple of years working with our sanitation and our snowplow departments over in our Department of Public Works. We paired the deployment of Rubicon at the time with their smart city tools about 2 years ago was when we really started putting those tools into effect. And we paired that with an operational change, actually a couple of operational changes to introduce standardized carts for our residents for both sanitation and recycling. And then in between that have also done a route optimization exercise with the staff on the team there. So a couple of different things that have gone into effect. And yeah, thanks, Harry. Happy to go deeper into any of those, or happy to answer any questions you may have here. I can't hear you, Harry.
There we go. I'm sorry, hit the wrong button. If you can you give us a little detail about why you decided you needed the technology, how you deployed the technology, and then what benefit did you see to the operation?
Sure. So, as we've been talking about this, preparing for this presentation, like I sort of think of it as two different but very interconnected benefits that we've received from having enhanced technology in our fleet. The first are the day-to-day insights into daily operations that we didn't necessarily have an ability to understand. Service verification, issues reporting, performance management, having the ability to understand where your teams and equipment are at any given point in time, and being able to pretty easily summarize the day's operations, what challenges might have existed, and increase that feedback loop on providing residents and customers with a better customer service and a better operational service has been pretty invaluable. The other element would be our route optimization for our sanitation. That went into effect this summer, where we changed the entire scheme of how our city picks up trash for residents, municipal solid waste. We used to do it in 15 routes per day, Monday through Friday, which the routes across each day and within each day were all very unbalanced. So we'd have crews returning all different times and different amounts of labor and time spent out in the field, which was just a terribly inefficient way of doing things. So we worked with the Rubicon team to better understand our existing conditions and take some industry best practices. And we were able to go from a 15 route scheme to a 12 route scheme. So just looking at the labor costs there, not even getting into the equipment costs, that's going to save the city about $600,000 a year in our ability to redirect that amount of labor into the field for other things like litter pickup or branches and debris, things like that. So two sort of different ends of that spectrum, but very interrelated and both incredibly helpful to our operations.
And with the route optimization and then balancing your routes, Connor, did you find that your employees were happier? Because obviously with unbalanced routes, you have some employees that are doing more work and others that are doing a lot less, and quite happy to do so.
Yeah, I think change is hard for anyone, especially for some of our longer tenured individuals who have been collecting waste the same way for 15, 20 plus years. And so I think anytime you come in and you say, I'm going to give you a system that does something different or something better, you have to have a pretty good reason on why you're doing it and what that means for individuals, what that means for the laborers, for the drivers, for the superintendents, for the DPW commissioner, for everybody, for residents. And certainly, especially the transition to standardized carts, what used to be a bring your own bin. You could have three 30-gallon bins, but that wasn't necessarily well enforced. So a transition to a 96-gallon cart with a lid and wheels was very impactful, but very, very challenging for residents to make that transition. So definitely had to do a fairly significant community engagement process, going out to various neighborhood groups and talking about the benefits of why we're looking to do this. With our most recent transition into recycling carts that were distributed about 6 weeks ago, that was a similar level of effort to communicate to residents what's going on there and why the benefits of that. One thing that's led to is a reduction in worker injuries. So workers no longer have to physically throw the materials into the back of the truck. We have a semi-automated collection system where the workers, the laborers, maneuver the carts to the back of the truck, and then the tipper arm puts the materials into the packer. So that's been huge. And then litter reduction for both our sanitation and our recycling has been immeasurable. Our crews and our environmental services team that are tasked with going throughout the community to litter pick have said that they've seen an absolute incredible amount of reduction in litter that we see on our streets that was really the result of just loose papers and materials blowing around from the wind in an open container. And now we've seen a very significant reduction in that. So very, very happy to not only have benefits that result in operational changes, but worker safety and resident street cleanliness as well.
Now, Connor, have you all had an opportunity yet to calculate your workers' comp savings?
We have a bit. I can speak to the number of injuries that we had on our sanitation team, mostly from looking at the perspective of either slip and falls or shoulder injuries from throwing heavy materials. Those went from 17 a year of significant injuries that had worker injury and time off. And that went in the year after we introduced our sanitation carts and our technology went down from 17 to 1. And so being able to see that return on investment, and the most important thing being that we want our workers to go home in the exact same condition that they arrived to work that morning. So that's been an incredible benefit that we've seen from this transformation of both technology and operations.
Okay, well, thank you. And what we'll try to do for our audience, we'll work with Connor and we will see if we can post those actual numbers, because depending on what part of the country you're in, typical workers' comp injury can range anywhere from $2,000 to $30,000, just depending on the severity of it. But I think we would all agree that the soft tissue injuries typically are some of the worst ones that we experience in our area of business. And Connor, one other question. You're in the mayor's office, correct? Is what you stated.
Correct.
And so you have had a privileged opportunity to hear the administration as you have introduced the technology. Well, when you're thinking about the technology, when you introduce the technology, now that you have those wonderful changes, can you lift the lid on that a little bit and share with the audience the good news from the office of the mayor?
Sure. I mean, in our last year's annual State of the City speech, the mayor described this transformation as one of the largest operational changes the city has taken on in decades, and it's a very major transformation to change the way that I refer to sanitation as the most intimate public service that people provide.
Right.
We come to your door every single week and we haul your trash away, and residents can think about all of the long scale improvements that an administration might have, and you can be as innovative and forward thinking as you intend to be. But at the end of the day, residents care about the nuts and bolts of city operations. They want to make sure that their trash got picked up, their streets are clear and paved, and they can get to work on time, and all those good, important kitchen table issues. So being able to be at the forefront of that large-scale transformation, implementing new technology, and managing a major public communications campaign and operational change has been a really rewarding experience. I get to drive home, through my neighborhood one night a week, and I get to see all those trash cans lined up like little soldiers down the street. That's a pretty cool thing to be able to see the fruits of your labor in a very tactile way like that.
Wonderful. And if I may, the feedback from the neighborhoods, I know as you were making the implementation, you went out, and so you got a snootful, if you will, of what people expected. And so if you can walk us from the expectations of your community groups and where they are today.
Yeah. So, we got a lot of concern up front before the changes happened, which is normal and expected. But we really found as we were diagnosing the concerns that we received is that we got concerns from all over the place regarding not necessarily the technology, but the operational change to transition to a standardized cart, right? And we got concerns from every side of that spectrum saying, the carts are way too big, the carts don't have enough space, there's too many carts per property for some of our multi-unit properties, not enough carts for others. And you're never going to please 100% of the people every single time. Our chief operating officer likes to say, perfect isn't on the menu, which is a real thing in municipal service delivery, right? Like you're never going to get 100%, but you want to get as many people as possible. And we really found that after a couple of cycles of learning, of understanding, oh, this is how this is supposed to work, and seeing the benefits of that, those complaints and concerns very significantly fell away. We had that same cycle again with our recycling cart rollout earlier, just a few months or so ago. But the requirement with a large transformational change like that to get out into the community, send lots of mailers and flyers and explainers on this is what's happening, this is what the expectation is, this is how it's going to happen, this is how it's going to benefit you. Working with our communications team has been really invaluable to get out to residents' front doors, drop off some door hangers for some of the residents that were experiencing some concerns, and meet and talk to community members where they are and help them understand that change has been very impactful.
Wonderful. And then closing the loop on that piece, your for many of us 311 data, your customer complaint data, you had lightly inferred up front once you made the implementation that you've seen those calls then go down just as strongly, because now you have verification of collections.
Yeah, we're going to need a few more months to really narrow in on a long-term trend, because when you make these transitions, those resident complaints actually spike in the very beginning. Because if you're changing somebody's day, collection day, not everybody's going to get that message, even though we probably gave them 15 pieces of paper in the mail that said this is what's going on here, which that's okay. But yeah, we definitely have seen in the very short term an influx of concerns, but then when we dig into that, it's really a question of, oh, you didn't get the message that we did a route optimization exercise using this technology. Some people's day of service change. It was a pretty significant number. It was about 26% of our resident households experience a day of service change, and so that's a big number to go to every 1 in 4 houses and say, your new garbage day is this date, even though you've been doing it the same way for 40, 50 years.
Right. Yeah, and the old method is I come out of the house and look down the street, and whatever my neighbors do, that's what I do.
Absolutely. We did switch to bi-weekly recycling as part of this, and that's still that's a tricky thing for people to remember. So we've got some new literature, some magnets, things like that people can keep in a safe place and help them to remember. But I think that the tried and true method of what are my neighbors doing also works pretty well too.
Absolutely. Well, Connor, we're going to pivot away from you for a bit, and we're going to switch over to our dear friend Philip up in Memphis. So, Philip, if you will, take us away and tell us how your experience has been, and by all means, please start us off with your vision that you needed technology to help you get to your next level.
Certainly. Thanks, Harry, and thanks to everybody on the webinar. So we started with a financial need. We were experiencing, I'll start off with a little bit about the city of Memphis. City of Memphis is about 325 square miles, and we service about 190,000 stops per week. So it's a pretty good size service area with a lot of stops and a lot of behavior, customer behavior to wrangle. We are a special revenue fund, so we are not funded out of the tax base. We're funded out of a solid waste fee that's charged on the local utility bill. And because of that, we had a need when we were experiencing a budget shortfall. We had a need to recognize any operational efficiencies that we could and drive down our costs as best we could before we went out and lobbied for a fee increase on that utility bill. We did that. We looked at several different options and landed on the Rubicon Smart City solution, mainly because there were two things we wanted to do. We wanted to optimize our routes, and we wanted to verify service delivery. And this Rubicon tool appeared to provide the best operation for us, best fit for us in accomplishing both those goals. As we went through the process, we were able to optimize our routes and drive down our overtime costs. I've got a few slides someplace if we want to refer to those. This helps me keep on track, but also maybe can provide some numbers, some data to show some folks.
Let me ask our invisible member, Katie, if we can start the slide presentation, please.
Okay.
Yeah, it's started.
I see it now. So we have 4 areas. There are 5 areas of the city, each one about 38,000 homes. 4 of those areas are serviced by city crews. One of those areas is serviced by an outside vendor. These numbers reflect our optimization before and after of the 4 city serviced areas. So what we saw was after our optimization, each area was able to drop 3 routes. So it was a total of 12 routes across the city. And each route was increased by about 153 stops. So that allowed us to free up identify some excess equipment and crews to better service and better utilize across the city. Let's see. On the next slide. This is what we saw during the implementation period. We also, at the same time we did the Rubicon solution, we also implemented a UKG time clock system. While we saw our number of overtime hours go down, some of that can be attributed to the utilization of that UKG system. But what I can say is that as our crews became familiar with the Rubicon technology and the optimized routing, we saw our overtime hours go down. Let's see, what's the next slide? And this is our savings, the city's savings that we saw. We saw about a $1.3 million decrease in our overtime costs compared to prior to the implementation of the Rubicon system. Again, we did also implement a time clock system at the same time, but we did drive down our overtime hours with the optimization of these routes. And then finally, as Connor was mentioning earlier, there's a component with the council and mayor's office, the complaints that we see coming into those places. And then the next slide, you can see our service trends. And what we did see was a decrease in the number of calls for miscollection. We were able to document that, yes, we did service that route when the callers came in called into 311. We were able to tell them, yes, we were on your route at this time, and kind of decrease the number of reports that way. But we also saw absenteeism, crews, the normal drivers out and a new driver's picking up a route. He may not know some of the nuances of, say, backdoor elderly customers and disabled customers can qualify for backdoor collection in Memphis, and those stops weren't always captured by new or visiting drivers to a route that's picking up a route that's not normally theirs. The Rubicon system allows us to identify those and make sure those stops are taken care of even when the normal driver is out. So all of our areas have seen a downward trend in their reported misses post optimization.
Excellent. And if we can, let's focus in. You indicated you had, just in the first year alone, you had 1.3 million in just overtime savings. Yes, sir. We saw a tremendous amount of overtime savings just with the optimization of the routes and making sure we weren't having to go back and service folks that didn't have their carts out on the right day, or folks that were just putting stuff out behind us. And with that, you were able to get that kind of savings. And one of the things I know, Philip, you're very modest, right, about some of these things. But within the SWANA industry, you're kind of looked at as a director that has one of the more challenging departments because you are in the city of Memphis. Your department is very key to the United States civil rights history, in that it was there that Dr. King came to support and advocate for the solid waste workers. And I believe just this past year, one of those last workers finally left the department, unfortunately was deceased, but was still there working as you went through making these changes.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, there's a lot of history related to, civil rights in the city of Memphis and nationally. It was Cleophas Smith, Reverend Cleophas Smith. He was a crew chief, drove a garbage truck down in our south sector, the southern part of the city. He had been with the city since 1967, and he did pass away, unfortunately, after being ill for a little while. He passed away back in October. He was still on payroll, and he was the last remaining 68 striker.
And this with a senior worker like this and the implementation of this technology was something that was so beneficial that even these employees of this caliber could see the benefit of making their day a lot better.
Certainly. I mean, the technology does, as Connor mentioned earlier, the technology didn't come without its little speed bumps along the way. Change, not only for the employees, but for customers, is a little bit uncomfortable. We challenged Rubicon early on by requesting that we not change customers' service delivery days. So that created posed some mathematical challenges for the folks, the back office folks at Rubicon, but they stepped up and we were able to get through with I don't think we had very many. I think we had probably less than 100 or two total stops that had to change a service day. We were able to keep everything pretty consistent. The drivers are the ones that saw most of the changes, and again, the technology, we were able to do a lot of hands-on training and train the trainer. Some of the younger guys on trucks that were more familiar with tablets and technology were able to help out the older. We have a very senior tenured population employee base. I think the average number of years of service we have between 14 and 16 years with the city of Memphis, and the average age is around 54 to 56 years old. So this is a tenured senior employee base that tackled this technology challenge.
Mm-hmm. And quite successfully, obviously. I'm not a Vegas person, but I'm just going to take a little gamble here and say that just in your overtime savings alone, your 1 year implementation, you've already covered the cost of implementing the Rubicon solution.
Certainly, it did cover the cost. Our first year savings, once fully implemented, did cover the cost for the Rubicon system.
And Philip, I believe you also mentioned that you were challenged by your political leadership that before you could get a rate increase, you had to show how the department was going to improve its level and quality of service. Is that correct?
That is correct. Again, we charge our solid waste service on the utility bill. That's a challenge, in a lot of urban areas that do it that way. But Memphis has about 24% of its population that fall below the poverty level, and so when you want to go up on somebody's water or gas, Memphis has the largest in the country three system utility. It's your water, gas, and electric all come from the Memphis Light Gas and Water Division. And when you want to mess with that bill and go up on rates, it impacts a lot of folks, and people have to make choices tough choices about paying that utility bill. And so we needed a lot of data to go to the council and lobby for that fee increase.
And then obviously, you know, all of us in solid waste typically recommended that we use the full cost accounting methodology. The fact that you're on a special revenue fund, you're obviously required to do that, and I'm sure there are specific legal regulations that you have to demonstrate this to the nth degree of how every penny is allocated, what it's being spent on, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. There's a lot of, not just from the political standpoint, but just from regulatory standpoint, we have a lot of eyeballs on our books, and so we have to be able to back up everything we do.
And I think we all know that typically when we talk about the solid waste utilities and other utilities, unfortunately, that's easy meat for the local media, and we generally hear regressive tax. But when you compare that to the cost of everything else and the public health and public safety implications of solid waste systems, what you were able to do in both cities was absolutely outstanding. And just so the audience knows, when you did finally go to council for your vote, how did that go?
So we were very fortunate. We used a lot of data, and it took the better part of 18 months to get it through. There was a long, robust debate with this council and a previous council, because half of the members were voted into office this past January. So I had to convince 50% more than normal on a fee increase. But this past July, we were successful in getting a $12 increase for the solid waste program in Memphis. So we went hand in hand with our labor partners. We have related to the 68 strike, we do have organized labor representing our employees, the city side of the employees. So we met with them, looked at the local market. Memphis is a transportation hub. You got FedEx, a lot of transportation going in and out of Memphis. Commercial driver's licenses are a premium around here, and so we saw a couple of labor actions with other private haulers here in town that resulted in substantial increases. And ultimately, we were able to use this data to document more work that was being done by our employees, but also the efficiencies that the management was trying to implement. We got that $12 increase, and we're able to give an 18% on average increase to the wages of our employees within the division.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, with that, I think we're at about the 35-minute mark. Let me go back over here and see with our webmaster if we have questions in the queue. Okay. All right. And so I think we've got a couple of them here that have come in, and just give you guys a chance, and we'll go Connor, Philip, based on the way we're looking at the screen. Can you restate quickly what led you to seek a technology solution for your department? Why was that important?
Sure, I'll jump in. I think it's part of a broader comprehensive approach to our municipal government and our current mayoral administration to be a more data-informed organization and to help make decisions with actual facts and figures on the ground and collected over time rather than gut feelings or hunches. Data's not going to, some of my data colleagues might cringe when I say this, but data's not going to give you every single answer. You do have to have an understanding of operations and politics and residents and all that kind of stuff. But you need to be informed by real actual numbers and performance. And so it's been part of a broader set of how do we leverage what technologies are out there, how do we give employees those tools to better communicate the excellent jobs that they are doing in the field. And so in addition to the work that our team has been leading with our sanitation and our snowplow teams, we're also looking at some asset management solutions like CityWorks, and are expanding our deployment of tools like that so that we can at the employee level, supervised level, senior management level, have a good sense of what's going on, when and where, and how are we continuing to improve how our government operates.
Okay, all right, Philip.
I agree with what Connor said. We have been data driven. I guess for the previous two administrations, going into this new administration, the mayor took office last January 1st, and this is his first term, and has continued on with taking a data-driven approach to everything. We have a monthly dashboard review with the mayor and all the division directors, where there's one big slideshow with all the division directors and the police chief, fire chief, talking about everything from crime statistics to through 911 calls, accidents that for the city engineer to talk about accident hotspot, intersection hotspots around town and what's being done. And solid waste is no different. I usually sit next to the manager of the 311 call center. I'm her number one. I'm her number one call, and usually of the service request types that are in the top 10. I kind of dominate her slideshow as well, and but it's having the information. Again, Connor said it. It's the data may not always make you. You may not always choose to make the smartest decision based on because there is some politics associated with, but at least you have numbers to kind of guide you into why you're making that decision, and make sure that make sure the impact of making the decision, even if the numbers may not make it make sense.
Okay, wonderful. And so, gentlemen, I hate to sound like a bad lounge comedian, but you just made the case of the name of the technology. Your political leaders are expecting you to be a smart city. Is that a fair statement? And I think we all agree that everybody's got technology in their hand, right? And so we've got smartphones. We have instantaneous data analytics. I think both of you gentlemen are also in university towns, are you not? And so you have public administration departments that generally come to cities for open data to try to find out how is that tax dollar being spent, and is it wasteful? And so technology is certainly how we get there. Philip, if I can, back to you. You talked about the 311 director, and so how much? And this could be a guesstimate call for right now, but how many poor customer behaviors do you believe you extincted? Meaning people who do the reloads, or they don't have the container out, and they call in anyway. And so now you're able to give immediate feedback that, no, we were at your home at 7:15. And one of the things we didn't talk about is now you have video, you have pictorial information as to what's going on. So speak to that for a moment, if you will.
So we do track the late set outs and the go backs with 311, and we work with our 311 call center to combat those. Now the administration in Memphis has taken the stance of we're going to go back and get it anyway right now at this point. But to your point, we have been looking at camera technology and installing that on all of our vehicles. We're in the process of doing that right now. With the intent of moving towards providing that documentation back to the customer saying, hey, we can't go back. We'll see you next week. Your cart wasn't out. Again, very sensitive to how we charge this fee on the utility bill, and we've got to continue. We've made a lot of progress, but we've asked for more money, more funding from the customer. So we've got to continue to drive our efficiencies and be good stewards of the money we're given.
And that you are going back right now without that decision point, or without charging the cost of going back, which can be anywhere from $65 to $100 just for that one trip for that one container. That's a future savings once you get to the point of bridging, going across that bridge. Correct?
Yes, that is, and we're keeping an eye on that ball because we want to get to that point where we can continue. There's a customer behavior component to all this, and that we've got to. At some point you can only do so much change in behavior of your employees, and you've got to pivot to the customer that's abusing the system, and that's going to be the next level.
Okay. One of the other items that we kind of went through quickly, and Philip, you just highlighted it again, but we'll give Connor the first stab at it, is new driver or new employee orientation, because we've seen, I guess the National Trucking Institute at one point had indicated there's about a 90% turnover rate in the private sector among long-range drivers. In the public sector, we were seeing anywhere from 30 to 50% turnover rate of new drivers because of the money that was available to them. So how has the technology solution helped with bringing new people on board?
Yeah, driver turnover and driver education are huge problems for all of our fleets, not just our sanitation, recycling, or snowplows. Part of the really helpful tools that we have out of these technologies are turn-by-turn directions that we can set up so that our drivers can utilize those to help them get familiar with their routes. And that's very different between sanitation and recycling versus snowplows, right? Sanitation and recycling is methodical. Every week should be the same, in theory, whereas snowplows is a bit more emergency management. And so one of the things we've been focusing on this past fall to get ready for this winter season has been documenting veteran travel paths for our new snowplow drivers. So we'll have a superintendent or a crew leader go out and run all of our routes. We've got about 60 or so, 60 to 75, depending on how you count them, snowplow routes. And by being able to put those turn-by-turn directions into the system, that gives our new drivers, who are often the drivers who are scheduled on our night shifts and may not be familiar with all the nooks and crannies of the city, gives them the confidence to be able to do their job a bit more effectively, a bit more safely. So that's just one way that we've been able to take some of the benefits of these technologies and help to mitigate the operational challenges of driver turnover and driver education.
And Philip, I'm sorry, Connor, you're using the same Rubicon technology for your snow operation as well?
We are, yep.
Okay, all right. So for those that are listening that didn't get that, the Rubicon solution for smart seating is also usable for plow operations. I'm sorry, Philip, go ahead.
Yeah. No, we with new drivers, we see the Rubicon technology as being beneficial to pass along the routes and allow them a tool that lets them start off the first day with an accurate map of where they're going. In the past, you would hand a guy a piece of paper and it would say John's route, and John may have retired 20 years ago, but it was John's route, and and that's very nondescript terminology. The tablets allow us to add and subtract, rebalance those routes, and add and subtract homes based on occupancy. We have a lot of rental property in certain parts of the town, and the occupancy goes up and down. And then supervisory wise, there's a lot of territory to cover for our 12 different supervisors. And those supervisors spend a lot of windshield time in the past to try to verify service. The technology allows them to be more efficient, to go check things where the data that's being reported back is showing some inconsistencies. They can target those areas and feel more comfortable about other areas where the technology is showing that service has been verified.
Okay. And with regards to the use of the fleet, how has the use of the Rubicon Smart City technology helped you with your fleet maintenance operation? Philip, you want to start?
Yeah, I can start off. No, it's the fault code reports that come in for each vehicle at the end of the day allow us to see critical issues before they, issues before they become critical issues. They allow us to send over information to our fleet side so that they can see things and work on things while the vehicles are not in operation. It provides another tool for our drivers when they're pre-tripping, post-tripping their trucks to kind of speak the language of the shop that's fixing the truck, and that I think that's beneficial. That's the main thing. Those end-of-day reports, reporting back fault codes, reporting back fluid shortages and critical fault codes before the vehicle is inoperable on the street.
Okay. Connor, do you have any comment on that one?
We do require our drivers to do a pre-trip and post-trip. I think we're still in the process of some of those behind-the-scene changes of making sure that our fleet manager, is paying attention to those on a day-to-day basis. Certainly gets reports on a broader basis. We use some other softwares, Dossier, for our vehicle fleet management across our organization. So looking at ways to
say that
see how trip issues can inform broader work.
Okay.
Oh, just saying, we're still working on. Can you hear me there, Harry?
Yeah, you were skipping just a bit, so if you would start over.
Oh,
I don't know if that was just
sure,
me
not
or
a problem.
if that was your
Yeah, not a problem. So we're still working on maturing that connection between the Rubicon pre and post trips that we do have our drivers utilize, and ensuring that our fleet manager has access to that on a day-to-day basis. But it's definitely an important part of our overall ecosystem there.
And so I'm looking in we have a question here. Do we see fleet optimizations being effective in the solid waste area to explore in other departments? And I think we just talked about in snow plow, but I'll leave it to you gentlemen to see where you think you could use these optimizations and technology solutions in other departments.
Yeah, it's definitely not apples to apples comparison. I'd actually say they're quite different. A sanitation route should be the same every week. Snow plows are emergency management. You have to have flexibility in that system to be able to know, how much snow is coming down, where across the city are things happening. Are we in a pre-snow sort of salting operation? Are we focused on keeping the main corridors, clear so people can get to work? Are we doing post-event cleanup and getting into all the alleyways and back ends across the city? Are we doing one pass or two passes? Things like that. So I would say that it's definitely encouraged us to explore how to utilize route optimization approaches in other fleets, but just the nature of those operations makes them quite different in how best to utilize those. Which is why we've taken, rather than sort of a computer-designed, optimized route approach, taking a veteran travel path approach, so that focusing on how our new drivers can do it exactly like the veterans have been doing it for 20 or 30 years, and finding the most efficient ways to leverage that knowledge base.
And Connor, are you under the current severe storm weather we've been seeing on the news with the snow? So you're getting plenty of experience with that if you are, right?
Oh yeah. No, we only got 4 or 5 inches this morning, so I had to dust off my snowblower, but it wasn't too bad for us. We're just fine. There's some folks not too far away from us who got a couple feet of snow, but we fortunately got spared that one this time around.
Okay, good. Well, we're glad because we needed you here with us. Philip, did you have any comment you wanted to add on that question from the audience?
Well, Memphis doesn't see 4 to 5 inches of snow that often, so that would have shut us down for a week. But where we have worked with it is in our public works division with street sweeping and routing of street sweeping. That's been a place also where that's been the Rubicon technology. They've tried it out. Now, Public Works we're no longer part of the Public Works division, so we're our own standalone division now. So I don't know where they are exactly with that program, but I know that they put the technology on their street sweepers and were developing routes, optimizing routes for their routine sweeping of the city.
And that, for those of us, from the plains back east, for the most part, that have the fall foliage, street sweeping, can't get it out, street sweeping becomes pretty important because a lot of cities use the sweepers for leaf recovery. I'm not certain. I believe you guys are doing some of that too. Is that right?
I wish they would. I wish they would. It would lighten my load, but we do not. We still do bagged leaf collection. The more and more of those yard services are using the vacuum trailers. So actually, we've seen over the last probably 5-6 years leaf season kind of decrease in volume, and spring cleaning become the vegetative debris that comes out during the spring kind of take over as our peak season. They still have 2 peak seasons, but the volume is more in the spring now than it used to be.
Okay. Let's see here in our questions. From the management level, gentlemen, right? You've put this technology out there. So now, from the mayor's office and then from the director's office, you have absolute visibility. And so you can see the entire system as it's being collected. What has that given to you as managers and reviewers of your supervisory and management staff below you as far as their accountability to effectively handle their jobs?
Having the detailed operational information to respond to a resident or citizen concern or complaint about, why are things happening the way that they are is always quite helpful. I think for sanitation, there's always the examples of the not outs, or when people call and make a complaint, and previously we didn't have the evidence to be able to say man, we were there at 7:15, as you said in your example, Harry, and find different ways to mitigate that challenge. And then for snow, being able to communicate why maybe a street didn't get plowed because the road was blocked from illegally parked cars, and things like that. So being able to tell residents what went wrong when things do, and be able to demonstrate with data some longer term trends to communicate that that was an anomaly and things are actually going quite well, and here's some information to back that up. I think is always quite helpful.
Philip?
No, I agree. The data being readily available in enough detail where you can see when it was a failure on the division side versus the customer side. We perform about 25 million touches a year, which I always joke and say that gives me ample opportunity to mess something up. So I've plenty of opportunities to make a mistake. And so seeing that, we're not afraid to admit it, because we kind of pride ourselves on the quick responsiveness, like when it's identified, responding quickly and correcting it. But it also is very important to not let our team, whether they be the management team, the frontline employees, it's important to not have them take the blame every time.
Right.
When it's a customer failure, we need to identify that, work with the customer, correct that behavior, and move along. I'm not opposed to helping them out and saying, yep, you did something wrong, but we'll get you this time. But it's important that it not become habit and control those habits, because it's easy to create a customer behavior issue.
Right. And Philip, you bring up a very good point. Just from your garbage collection and the number of customers you have, that's nearly 10 million visits a year, right? And a lot of times what some of our elected leaders fail to realize is just how many opportunities we have to do things right. And what we usually find is, for most solid waste collection operations, they're 98 or 99.5% on time, and they get it right. And we oftentimes find ourselves as leaders burning a lot of administrative time dealing with that 0.5% of that 1% problem, because it is local government. People we are getting money from people the worst way possible, right? We tax them for it, and they have to pay us, and so that creates a certain level of expectation that we as local officials accept and we deal with. Well, gentlemen, we're at the right toward the end. I'll give you guys 1 minute to wrap up your thoughts to the audience on how technology has improved your life from an operational, political, and management perspective. So, Connor, lead us off.
Sure. I'll say, similar to a point you're making earlier, Harry, technology is much more pervasive throughout just day-to-day life than it was 5, 10, or 20 years ago. And residents have higher expectations about city government because of that ubiquity of technology, right? If you can order an Amazon package and follow it at every step of the way and know when it's going to come to your door, people expect a higher level of transparency and information from their local government. You need to have that information. You need to make sure everybody's coordinating and using those tools in the right way to make sure the information that's in the system is good quality information. And you need to communicate that proactively, because if people don't hear an explanation for when something's going well or when it's going wrong, they're going to fill in those blanks with their own assumptions and their own biases. And so it's important for a city government to have that information and share it as much as they can.
Okay. Thank you, Connor. Philip?
No, same thing. You've got to collect the data to tell your story. You need to be able to measure when you're doing things right, measure when things go wrong, so you can correct those issues and provide a higher quality service. It is what's being expected by the customer. They're paying for the service, and if you're not collecting the data to provide to tell your story, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Well, gentlemen, thank you all very much. Obviously, you guys know I have great appreciation for what you all do. And we certainly want to thank Rubicon Routeware for being in the business and making your jobs a lot easier. And then Government Fleet for hosting this very informed webinar. We've got a link out there. If you're looking for this or you want to share it later, or send in additional questions that we may need to answer, there will be an email that'll come out to everyone who signed up where they can find this and watch these wonderful gentlemen again and take note from you. So thank you all very much, and we look forward to hearing from you real soon.
Thanks very much.